Your thoughts on the president's final TV interview?
Thank goodness. Look, this has been 8 years of nothingness. The only thing he did domestically was impose a huge effective tax on the middle class with Obamacare to subsidize lower cost insurance for those that are not yet in the middle class. And all he did internationally was a disastrous agreement with Iran. So frankly, he may be trying to pat himself on the back, but the country is not the better for the last 8 years.
John, what do you think the most important thing is for this incoming administration to set the tone for the next 4 years? Should it be the repeal and replace of Obamacare? Should it be their economic policies that they're looking to dictate? What do you think is the best thing they could be doing right now?
Address Obamacare, fix the tax laws so that we have incentives for investment, and show the rest of the world that America is ready to lead again in foreign policy. That's what I think the three-pronged most important agenda items would be for President Trump.
What about the other part of the agenda, the economic agenda and tax reform? Because it feels like we're talking about Obamacare all the time, and, you know, these markets are expecting one thing. Are we going to see it soon in?
Maria, that was the second one of the three I listed.
Okay, sorry. Apologies.
Fixing taxes.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
No, but you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Look, tax reform gets worked through the House and Senate committees. The president-elect has given them that charge. They are working on it. You can talk to anybody involved in the leadership of those committees, and they have been working on it for about 60 days. This is going to come together. I think it's going to be less chaotic than people think, and I think there's a commitment on the part of Republican Senate leadership and Republican House leadership to give this president a successful agenda in the next 150, 180 days.
Harlan Hill here. By promising so much, is Donald Trump setting himself up for some disappointment? My concern is that he's promised tax reform, he's promised, redoing Obamacare, which has been a disaster for the last 7 years now. Is he setting himself up for failure by promising the world and not being able to deliver in the short time frame that he really has?
Look, I'd rather have a president with a bold, constructive agenda to fix America's problems than a president that retreats into the White House like we saw in the last 8 years and got nothing done. So I don't see any problem thinking big. I hope he can perform big, and I think Americans will appreciate the fact that if he only bats, say, 900, that he has made a major change for the country for the good.
John, in terms of the repeal and replace on Obamacare, though, in the replacement portion, the Republicans are going to need those 60 votes in the Senate. It's not as easy as the repeal part of it, and that means getting some Democrats on board. How does the Trump administration do that?
You know, I think they ought to start talking about the fact that Obamacare is really the largest tax increase, effective tax increase in American history. What they did is they authorized the insurance companies to impose what was effectively a tax by increasing premiums on the middle class in order to put money and subsidize the premiums for those who were not as well off. And I think if they point that out, they may eventually get a resonance amongst the country, the rest of the country, to put pressure on the Democrats. The Democrats will only move if there's pressure from the voters, and I think the voters are sick enough of Obamacare that they can be pushed to put real pressure into the process.
I think the voters are also frustrated with our foreign policy that we've had over the last 8 years. We drew a red line. We've seen the Middle East implode because we didn't do anything about it. What can this administration do and start with to try to get some stability in the region, not only there, but also deal with Russia?
Look, the most important thing Donald Trump can do in terms of foreign policy is to talk about the fact that the United States is once again willing to lead. Under Obama, we were giving everyone the impression that we were withdrawing. And nothing constructive happens in the world without U.S. leadership and a U.S. willingness to take the lumps that comes with leadership. And I think Donald Trump has said that that's going to be the direction of this policy. I was encouraged by Tillerson's hearings. I think he's got a good sense of what has to be done in the world. And I think you've got a president that recognizes that he ought to be listening to his cabinet on issues such as foreign policy and moving things forward according to an agenda that uses U.S. strength, U.S. capacity to lead, and the U.S. exceptionalism as it once used to be before the last 8 years.
Well, it hasn't been easy, even with his own party, right? I mean, you look at, you know, the pushback from Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham. And then you've got, of course, outgoing CIA Director John Brennan. He's now butting heads with the president-elect over Russia. What does this mean for Trump's relationship with the intelligence community? What are your thoughts on this exchange just overnight with John Brennan this weekend?
Yeah, if there's one thing I really do feel the Trump transition has not handled well was its relationship with the intelligence communities. From my experience in the White House, the intelligence community is one of the president's greatest assets, and he ought to use them, not get into conflict with them. And I hope once he gets there, once he starts working on a regular basis, a daily basis with them, I hope that relationship evolves to what it should be.
All right, we will leave it there.